There's a lot of work going into the draft right now. We're going to give you 3 guys that need to be in your lineups as you're doing your mocks and working through your progress, getting ready for the NFL draft. Welcome to Locked On NFL Draft.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of the Locked On NFL Draft Show. I'm your host, former NFL and AFL defensive back, Eric Crocker. And of course, as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Ryan Tracy. He's Ryan Tracy NFL on Twitter. I'm Eric Crocker at Eric_Crocker on Twitter. And today, man, we are getting into it, like you said, talking about 3 prospects, getting away from our top 5s just a little bit. But we're starting here in the trenches with a big dog, massive guy in the interior. And I definitely have some questions about maybe your thoughts on where he should play, how he plays, things like that. But Jordan Davis, defensive tackle out of Georgia, 6'6", 340 pounds, and he's listed at 340 pounds. Might be just a little heavier than that.
Maybe.
And the NFL, you know, they've kind of been going away from some space eaters. So one, I want to ask you, do you think he has to fit a specific defense? Is he more of a 3-4 nose? Do you think he could play 4-3, but maybe be a 0 tech or, you know, line up opposite a 3 tech? Where do you think he's best suited to be, especially for a guy who's can improve as a pass rusher, but is maybe more someone who you just count on to take on double teams a little bit more?
Yeah, that's the question. I think he can play the 1. I think he can play the 0. I'm comfortable with both. I don't think you'll get as much out of him if he's lined up across the center, head up all the time. It just feels like that is a recipe to kind of limit what he does. And honestly, mid-season, I thought he was going to be a top 15 pick because he looked so dominant. But as the season wears on, what you see is that I don't see the stamina there to survive on third down consistently, especially if you're head up on somebody. Now, if he can slant and do some of the things, use his quickness that he does display, I think that that's the recipe to get the most out of him, at least initially. I think he does have some ceiling that he can still acquire. I don't think he's a finished product by any means. So I just think that that's a starting point. How do you feel about him as a pass rusher itself?
Yeah, you know, I think that's the part where he really needs to improve his game. Now, he does show some really good initial quickness. So off the ball, he's able to get there and use his hands, use his power, knock guys back, does that well. I think a real big strength of his is how good he is at taking on double teams. And if he's taking on double teams, that means that somebody else is free. I think he did a tremendous job of that. And everybody talks about all the players that were tremendous across not just the front, but the front 4, the next 3 guys, the linebackers for Georgia, they were all excelling. I think he was a big part of that, just taking on more guys and taking attention away from some of the other guys and giving them more one-on-one battles, because he is a guy who, because of his strength, you're not going to be able to just line up and we're just going to line up in 50 block and be able to just move this guy out the way. He will disrupt the run game tremendously, and he will show you a little bit more pass rush ability in one-on-one situations. Another thing that I think jumped out to me that I was a little surprised to see when he's on, like when he's not tired, and that's another thing we'll talk about. When he's not tired and he's like fresh, you know, his pursuit is really good. For a guy that is as big as he is, I think he closes well in short areas. He's someone that's definitely, if you are looking to improve, especially in the run game, and really stop, and you want to make that a priority, I think this is a guy that's the best at it. Now, it's not just him as far as not being a great pass rusher. When you look at a lot of defensive tackles throughout this class, like there's not that DeForest Buckner, who, you know, years ago was a number 6 or 7 overall pick. He's somebody who has a mean swim moves. He's going to give you 10 plus sacks in a season. Not sure if you're going to get that type of protection for Jordan Davis, but I think the benefits of having him is to free up other guys and let them eat. What are some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's the problem. Is he is somebody that takes the load off of other players and lets them shine, at least in his current evolution, right? That doesn't mean he can't grow into something else. But he's not, I feel, a difference maker, especially in the way that you have to have the pass rush inside in order to combat these, 1 point or 2.3 second throws. Those kind of, I exaggerate a little bit, but it does allow his partner, if you've got like a lighter pass rush oriented 3-tech that maybe can play opposite, I think that helps, just like you said. But that then becomes about values. Like, how much do you justify a guy that frees up others, but isn't making the impact himself? I think that's going to vary across the league. For me, I would probably lean towards somebody that can get his job done on his own.
Right. And when you're trying to look at like fits, right, for a guy like this, you're thinking about a team that just likes big bodies. And, I'm not going to pretend to know the defensive tackle situation for a team like Baltimore Ravens, but I do know Baltimore has built their identity on big bodies up front. So that's a team, again, without knowing their, who they have at defensive tackle right now. Are they looking to upgrade anything like that? But a team that could be looking to stay big down there in the middle, they'd be intrigued by a guy like this. Again, strong upper and lower body, initial quickness, really good anchor. Those are some of the notes I took. But my last note, endurance questions. And not much of a pass rusher. So those are things that he's going to have to improve on. When we come back, we're going to talk about another prospect, a linebacker, Chad Mumma. People aren't really talking about him. He led the college football. He led the nation in tackles. We're going to get into him. But first, I want to talk to you a little bit about BetOnline. All right, in football, this season might be over, but basketball, NBA, college hoops, they are going full force right now. From the latest odds, totals, player performance props, to where you'll find the next fired head coach. Where is he going to land? BetOnline is your number one spot to find all of that information. All right, BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. All right, BetOnline is your number one source for hockey, boxing, UFC, even the Olympics coming up, and all the Olympic information that goes into that. All right. Head over right now to the new website today and use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action that BetOnline has going on right now. All right, that's BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so let's get into it, man. We got this linebacker, Chad Mumma. All right, Chad Mumma. A lot of people aren't really talking about him. You have the freaks at linebacker. You have the let me look at my list right here. Nakobe Dean, Devin Lloyd, Quay Walker, Christian Harris out of Alabama. But I think the forgotten guy is Wyoming linebacker Chad Mumma, a guy who I said when I teased this up, led the nation in tackles. But he's different from some of these guys, maybe not as explosive. And can you kind of allude to maybe where the game is going as far as linebackers and what they're being asked to do, and why that might have somewhat of a knock on a guy like Chad Mumma?
I think that's exactly what it is. It is about from here forward, because he isn't the downfield trigger that Nakobe Dean is. He isn't a guy that can go out to the edge and effectively rush the passer on some stack over stuff. But he is a guy that can plant his foot, get to a drop, understand pass route combinations, and be in position. Does he give up catches? Yes. But on the season, I think he was targeted, 30 times, 26 receptions. He has only 280 yards allowed. A lot of corners in college football would like to have that low a number. He can move and he can be in position to limit yak. And I think that's going to be important at the next level. That's where the game's going. I prefer old school a little bit. I want somebody who can bust through, take on a guard, and put him on his butt, but that's not Chad Mumma. Honestly, that's not many players, even those that we do like that trigger downhill, like Dean, like Channing Tindall, like him coming forward. But I think Mumma is a guy that's in position to not only land a starting role, but be a guy that doesn't have to come off the field. He's not super aggressive. He's not super strong. He's a nice, well-rounded guy against the run, but he can really get into space, and that's the advantage.
Yeah. One thing that I put in my notes on him is best tackler in this class. And so that's a positive. And again, led the nation in that. Doesn't give up a whole lot of leak yardage. And that's a term that I took from Robert Saleh, current New York Jets head coach, where, when guys come in and go to make a tackle, do you get knocked backwards and give up 2 to 3 more yards? All right. I didn't see that with him. I thought he was terrific there. Shedding tackles. I thought that was a strength of his. Instinctual play recognition. That's tremendous. So a guy who, understands he can see things before it happens. Now, you won't mistake him for being like a Luke Kuechly and what he was able to do, especially with the athletic upside that Kuechly had. But for a guy that you might be able to take play to, he has the instincts. He has the play recognition. I thought in space, he was solid when he understands where his drop was, but could improve just from an athletic standpoint. And, some of these guys, and I know I reference a lot of 49ers players. I watched a ton of them, but Fred Warner. Fred Warner is a guy who the 49ers would ask to run vertically with the number 3 receiver on vertical pushing routes. Or there were times where in space, he'd have to guard guys like Hollywood Brown, who's pushing upfield, flip his hips and turn and dive and knock away a ball. Now, are all guys going to be able to do that coming out? Maybe not. And that's why Fred Warner is one of the highest paid linebackers in the league. But I'm curious to see if the league is continuing to go that way. And if they are, well, guys like Chad Muma, who is really good at tackling, limiting big plays, will he still have kind of that added value because, well, he doesn't have the top end athleticism and a guy that you can trust out in space against potential receivers running vertically?
I think his hips are actually pretty good, though. I get to see him live because of where I live in the country. So a lot of that is taken off of live game viewing, but I wouldn't call him a DB, and certainly not Fred Warner. But I do think that part of it, especially in short areas, I do think that he's able to change his direction pretty well, stick with. I'm a little bit more concerned about the long speed for a slot receiver going up the seam on him or something like that. That's for sure. But in general, how do you like the way that he moves in say the 15-yard increment?
Yeah, I think from that's going to be his strong point. And again, you talked about triggering and things like that. Just being able to identify it, closing it right now, and be confident with what he's seeing. That's going to be where he makes his money at. And is it going to be Nakobe Dean, who you'll see him beeline to the sideline and beat everybody, including DBs, safeties, and he's getting there before those guys. You won't see that, or even some of these other freakish linebackers in this class. But just his ability to play a step ahead, and you can make a career of that. I mean, look at Richard Sherman. Yeah, right. I know, different position, but Richard Sherman, one, he's long. When you're a longer corner like that, it's harder to match guys' short area quickness. All right. Two, he wasn't a speedster. He was a 4.57 type guy, which isn't slow, but it's definitely not fast. Right. How did he win? He was able to anticipate where guys were going and understand route concepts. And if Mumma can be a step ahead with that aspect of it, he won't have any issues being able to play at the NFL level. And I think that's something that could really work out for him.
Yeah, I think the last feather in his cap is his leadership ability. He can be your green dot. He doesn't have to come off the field. He can align the defense. I think there's a lot to that. And I think there was some concern about his level of competition. When he went to the Senior Bowl, I thought he stood in there. I thought he took over and formed that leadership on that defense pretty easily. I heard a lot of positive comments about his presence within the huddle and on his team. So I think that kind of rounds out what you're looking for, the guy in the film room, in the meeting room, and that kind of thing as well.
All right. And NFL teams, they'll definitely value that. Hopefully he does really well on his interviews. That'll make him even more intriguing to these teams. And when we come back, we're going to get to our last guy. One last guy. A guy that I actually have not watched yet. All right. But
you'll like it. You'll like it.
San Diego State. So I'm interested to see what Ryan has on him. But first, I want to talk to you a little bit about Built Bar. All right. And this time of the year, a lot of people have pretty much given up on their New Year's resolutions, but I haven't. And I always want to get the kids snacks, but instead of grabbing the kids snacks, I grab me a Built Bar. All right. Have you tried the Built Bar Puffs? They are really good. I know so far my favorite, they got the banana cream pie. Delicious. All right. They are fluffy. They are marshmallow, and they are not just a protein bar. They are a treat, and they are covered in 100% real chocolate. Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors. Yummy cinnamon, coconut marshmallow. I talked about banana cream pie. That's definitely my favorite so far. I just ordered a whole new 12-pack of those, and they are so good, man. So good. These are going to be your new favorite, just like they're my favorite as well. All Built Bars are covered with 100% chocolate. Yes, that includes the Built Bars Puffs as well. And it's, again, 100% real chocolate, but low in calorie, high in protein. And it's something that you can definitely replace your candy bars with and all the other little snacks that I like to eat. throw those out, man. You don't need those because these Built Bars, 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to any candy bar that you're even thinking about eating. Me, I love Reese's peanut butter cups. They got a ton of calories, probably around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar or more, and dozens of net carbs. Or mint brownie, coconut almond, and they always have new flavors, including this month. They got white chocolate, cookies and cream, delicious. And new flavors are always coming out, always. And if you think of a flavor that you think you might like, they might make it. So keep a lookout on that early and often. All right, at Built Bar, they are all about the taste. They want this thing to taste good. All right, so they make it taste good first, and then they worry about how to make it be healthy later. All right, where are you going to go to get these delicious things? You're going to go to built.com and use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off of your order. Again, use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, man. So the floor is yours to talk to me about Cam Thomas out of San Diego State, edge rusher, a guy I don't know height, weight. I don't know if he's yellow, pink, green, black, white. I have no idea anything about Cam Thomas, but I know you're going to tell me all about him, especially where he lines up in this really deep edge class.
Yeah, that's the intriguing part to me. I've been more surprised this week. He's my favorite player of the week that I've watched. And I'm surprised you don't know a Cali player that's on your board.
I know, right?
That's all right. We'll get to it. 6'0" is supposedly what he's going to measure in at 275. He's a power edge as the best way to explain him. He will show a little bit of twitch from time to time, but he is not a bender. He is not a guy that's looking to get around the outside shoulder. He's looking to go through a guy's chest plate and crush that quarterback. He's consistent. Probably his biggest thing is functional strength. He can take on double teams, which he gets a lot. He can also dip through them. He can move 2 guys at once at times. His motor doesn't end. And I think he is like the ultimate old school 4-end that like somebody like Steve Spagnuolo really likes. Somebody that can just crush that pocket. He's going to have a couple of things. He's got a nice long arm. I think his measurements is going to come in pretty nice. Swim, chop. Don't see much spin from him. Not his game. He is moving forward at all times. The burst is average, I would say, but every now and then you get a rep that really kind of stands out. It may be more about his anticipation. That's what I see on a couple of the films that they've been able to see. The detriment obviously is bending around, playing with some high pad level at times. He's had an up-down performance as well. He's had days where he's really getting after it and very successful. Ask Carson Strong about that. He sheds pretty well, and he's a sure tackler. He will follow down the line of scrimmage, and he understands the run game, where to be and how to stop that. He is a well-rounded 4-man front kind of guy that you could put on an island. But the thing that I like about him best is because of that take-on strength and that functional strength, he could be a 5-tech too. He could man your outside in a 3-man front and do pretty well as well. So I think that push-pull is something he's still got to work on. I don't see that enough for me, but anywhere from 3 out to a 9 technique, I'm comfortable with him getting on the field and making the most of it. I'd like to see him stand up a little bit more because I think there's some J.J. Watt in there somewhere. I think it just needs to be uncovered.
You know, listening to you talk about him, I have a couple of questions that came up. And one thing that I want to say that kind of works to his benefit, I think the NFL right now is going to a lot of cover 4, to a lot of quarters, too high in early downs. All right. Yep. If teams are going to do that, they're going to need somebody strong on the edge, especially in the 4-3. All right. If you're going to do that, you need somebody that could take on some strength, actually be a legit run stopper. So, you know, it's not that guy that's going to be pushed around. All right. The reason why some of these teams are going to these too highs is because they want to eliminate those big gaping crossing routes on big play actions where, you know, we're seeing the staple of it. Obviously, we see, you know, Kyle Shanahan, McVay, a lot of these teams starting to do this where they have that guy play action and he comes all the way across where you want to have a safety on the other side. You can't do that if you have single high safety. So they're going more too high to protect that, and they want that big end, that elephant end out there so he can be strong and stout against the run instead of having to have an extra guy in the box. So I think that is something that benefits a player like this who is 6'6", 275 pounds and plays strong. I want to ask you, there's another guy that is kind of similar in the sense of play style. I don't know if the size is similar, but George Karlaftis out of Purdue, he is kind of that bigger, stronger, stout. Maybe not as bendy, gets up field right now, but definitely plays with some strength. Do you think there are any similarities with their game?
There's definitely similarities. I do believe that Thomas is going to measure longer. He plays longer, in my opinion. I actually was surprised to find that when it was all said and done, um, not 100% complete on both those guys. I'd like to get another game or two on both of them, but I have Thomas now graded above Karlaftis. Again, similar in that they don't have the bend, but I don't see the same functional strength, the same edge setting from Karlaftis, and I don't see as much ability to shed. Those are two things that stood out to me with him, that I'm trying to draw that differentiation, but they're fairly close, and I think they're the best two power edges in this group. I would still put like Jermaine Johnson in more of the 3-4 type role. I know that he can play in a 4-man front, but when you get down there, like the Myjai Sanders, the Nick Bonitos, D'Angelo Malone's, those are all the guys that want to stand up and need to be in a 3-4, in my opinion. So I think that these, if you want power and you want somebody that has some pass rush skills, that you're maybe not waiting on Trayvon Walker to get a little bit more advanced in hand fighting and that kind of thing, I would say that right now Thomas is above Karlaftis, but in the similar vein.
And do you have like a projection on maybe round? And I know we're waiting for combine results and things like this. By next week, we'll start to get into that. But where do you kind of project him to go pre-combine?
He's in my top 50 right now.
Okay.
The question becomes, is the benchmark has been to this point in the during the regular season been Karlaftis. I think he's starting to fall down because of the burst issues and a couple of things that we talked about. So I think eventually they're going to flip, but I do think that they're probably both right on that tier of between 30 and 45.
All right, there it is. There it is. Cam Thomas out of San Diego State. I just learned a lot about him. Edge rusher. I hope you did too. And I hope y'all continue to learn from this podcast. We want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. When we come back on Monday, you already know what it is, man. Mock Draft Monday. You know what I'm saying? We'll be loading this same time, same place. Make sure if you haven't already, follow us at Eric_Crocker on Twitter. Also follow my guy Ryan Tracy at Ryan Tracy NFL, and also his work that he's doing with Rogue Analytics. But until next time, we will see y'all later. Peace.